also incredibly smart, kind, compassionate, um, intelligent, worldly, uh, funny, bright, like witty, clever, and creative, like so many things, right? I'm not just a sex symbol. Community. And it's so interesting because yes, this is a transient town, but I think more than ever we're isolated because I know even for me, I'm home more now than I ever used to be. You mentioned community, and it's so interesting because yes, this is a transient town, but I think more than ever we're isolated because I know even for me, I'm home more now than I ever used to be. Alcohol. I was obsessed with it when I was in it. And now that it's been far removed from me, almost 13 years in a couple months, well, less than.
It's amazing.
Thank you. I have to be really intentional about what I run to when I'm in fear. This amazing superstar and these incredible superstars.
You look so smart. I gotta get me some of those.
Yeah, you.
So sweaty right now already. And because my name is, ridiculous. I will meet someone and I'm like, my name is Anushka.
Yeah.
And I'm really emphatic about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, Anastasia? I'm like,
oh. But I have a friend who has a daughter named Anastasia,
actually
and she calls her Anastasia sometimes. She calls her Anastasia. She calls her Anastasia. So,
but it's not Anushka.
It's not Anushka.
Hi, welcome to the Empowered Exchange. My name is Anushka DiGiorgio. Today, my guest is actress Brandy Ledford, well known for Modern Family and, of course, Baywatch. But she's really much more than that. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Anushka.
Blondes unite.
Yes.
I'm so happy. You are, in fact, my first female guest on the podcast.
I love that.
Yes. And it's not by accident that I chose you. And we have a lot in common. And we're going to cover some of it. But first of all, I want to say that I'm so glad to share space as a sober woman with you, as a successful sober woman. And, a lot of my podcast is really about helping people to understand how to achieve balance between having success with your career, success with a family, success being sober and navigating through that and how that changes. So I really want to hear a little bit about sort of what it was like for you as an emerging actress and also managing maybe, addiction, alcoholism, and how you came to become successful.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I just adore you. I respect you. I'm inspired by you. I'm really honored to be the first female guest on your podcast. Congratulations. It's really incredible. When I was starting out as an actress, it was a long time ago, and I was really so ambitious. It's really all I wanted. I fought so hard for all of everything I ever achieved, but I wasn't really sober. I had drugs and alcohol from a very early age, as part of a coping mechanism, or just I couldn't stop drinking or using drugs when I was on. And so, it was the late 80s, early 90s. It was just a constant party. And yet I found that I could still work as long as I wasn't inebriated during work or too hungover to work. And so I just became kind of addicted to my work. I just really focused on that so heavily and became successful in that. I just always worked as an actress, which to me today, when I look back, it's really successful. But because back then I always wanted more and more and more, right? Typical alcoholic. It didn't feel successful. I was just working all the time.
It's one of the things that I really identify with you and I respect in you, and I can see, that in myself too, that sort of like just the drive and the constant sort of addiction to work. And I think it is a bit of an addiction too, the drive to succeed. Do you think that certain aspects of like your history, your childhood gave you that real hunger to succeed?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I had two very hardworking parents. So yes, my mom and dad divorced when I was 4, but they each worked really hard. My mom, I grew up in various stages of either
Mhm.
real poverty, you know, welfare, food stamps,
Mm.
or depending on my mom's husband, maybe we had a lot of money at that time.
Mhm.
But everybody worked, right?
Right.
No matter
Yeah.
whether we were lean or abundant. My
Mhm.
mom always worked really
Mhm.
hard. She still does. She's
Yeah.
81 years old. She still
Wow.
works. I know. It's really
Yeah.
cute. She's a crossing guard. It's adorable.
Oh my God,
But
that's
because
adorable.
I know. And if she's not at work, she's
Yeah.
doing stuff for her kids. You know, she
Yeah.
had 4 kids and she's got like 100 grandchildren now.
Yeah.
And she's just always doing stuff. And
Yeah.
my dad was the same way. My dad
Mm.
was never not working, even when he retired. So I did have those role
Mhm.
models.
Mhm.
But I think the ambition in my career came from a true passion.
Mhm.
And you're in the mix. You know, once you get on the ride, it just takes you.
Mhm. Yeah.
However, as an alcoholic, it was never
Mhm.
enough. It was never good enough. I always
Mhm.
wanted more. And then that drove me as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, and
Not
that's
so
sort of,
bad.
I mean, I feel like Hollywood and being an actress, it's so seductive
Mhm.
as well. And I feel like when you get I mean, I was never really an actress. I was more in music, but I feel like once you get a taste of this sort of the possibility of this,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm not from LA and you're not either. So when did you first come to LA?
I was 2. So I'm basically
So
from
you
LA.
almost are from LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why I never think of you as being from LA,
I don't know.
but I
Well,
think,
because when I came
yeah,
to Redondo Beach. So I'm
right.
really a beach
Okay,
girl, right?
okay,
And we
yeah,
came from Colorado
right,
to,
right,
I
right,
mean, when I was 2. So I moved to
yeah,
Redondo Beach and I never ever,
yeah,
I always lived in LA since
right,
then, you know,
right, right,
various stages
yeah.
of LA.
Well, I think you have like a wholesome kind of thing about you, which is so lovely, and pretty rare now.
It's really funny to hear
Um,
you say that.
I mean, I discovered my wholesome side like well into my 40s.
Yes.
I was not born that way. I had to learn to be wholesome, you know?
Yes, I was not wholesome, and I
Mhm.
am wholesome because
Mhm.
of sobriety now. And I
Mhm.
would say that
Mhm.
a big goal of mine has always been to get back to that,
Mhm.
right? As little
Mhm.
kids, you know, I did
Yeah.
a lot of reparenting
Yeah.
when I went to rehab, right? I
Mhm.
went to rehab 13 years ago and I learned
Mhm.
about my inner child and my
Yeah.
little girl, and I
Mhm.
reparented her,
Yeah.
and I'm just always taking care of her,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
always wanting to sustain a childlike,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
attitude and
Yeah.
sensibility
Yeah.
and still be a strong, independent woman.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the difference between, and I explain this to male clients that I work with, that it's the difference between being childish and childlike.
Yeah.
And like childlike, there's a wonder and there's a curiosity, and childish, there's an entitlement and there's a sort
Yeah.
of arrogance to it.
Yeah.
But so when you came into, what was your first big break? Like the moment that sort of you felt like, oh, I've arrived.
Well, there were a few moments because
Mhm.
I didn't start as an actress. I started as a model.
Mm.
And so I started modeling in New York. Oh, I
Mhm.
started modeling here in LA. But I always wanted to be a runway model or a
Mhm.
supermodel,
Mhm.
as we called them back then. But I was
Yeah.
short
Yeah.
and I wasn't skinny.
Mhm.
And so I found nude modeling, and I
Mhm.
got
Mhm.
really successful in that. And
Mhm.
I always like to say, um, I made it to the top of the shit pile,
Oh.
because I did make it to the top,
Mhm.
but it was,
Yeah.
I mean, because I became eventually through a lot of modeling, the Penthouse Pet of the Year.
Wow.
So that
Okay.
for a lot of women, girls back then,
Yes.
that was their goal. It wasn't my goal. It just
Right.
happened to me.
Right.
And then I was
Yeah.
off and running.
Uh-huh.
But that was successful
Mhm.
in a different metric, but
Mhm.
just not mine. So I took off. I quit. Actually, I stopped halfway through
Mhm.
that year of when
Mhm.
I was the ambassador for the magazine.
Right.
It wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I
Mhm.
became an actress.
Mhm.
And I just went to acting school.
Mhm.
And then I met people here. I came back here. I
Mhm.
lived in New York, but I
Okay.
came back here and just started meeting people, working really
Right.
hard. I went to acting school,
Uh-huh.
and through some connections, I'd get
Mhm.
auditions and do
Mhm.
little B movies.
Yeah.
I wish no one would watch ever again, but they all do still to this day. Um, and then I got my SAG card
Mhm.
through a movie called Demolition Man that people are still to this day talking about because it's this year now. It was a futuristic movie back in 1993 or 4, but they were talking about 2025. Yeah. So Elon Musk is tweeting about it these days, and people are still watching it. I got a residual check the other day for like 6 cents, but
love that. You know.
But that was my first big movie. And then I did Married with Children and all the shows that we all started out doing. So all these little TV shows. And then I did an Aaron Spelling pilot that helped my career. And I just took off from there. Baywatch came many years later, many years later into my career.
And what was it like? I mean, I would imagine, I mean, you're very recognizable still. And so what do people recognize you?
To be honest, people recognize me for my sci-fi work. So I did a lot of sci-fi work. Notably a TV series called Andromeda and 2 TV series called Stargate. So there was Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. And the reason I love those, I love when they recognize me from that because the women in sci-fi can look like I look and be smart. Yes. Are empowered. Yes. Are brave. Are sexy, vulnerable, but smart and tough.
And strong.
So
and
strong. Heroic. I mean, I was in Andromeda. I was the strongest being in the universe. Wow. My android, but I look like Barbie. They had me on all pink and I got to be dolled up. But she was the strongest, smartest being in the entire universe. And this, right? So I love when people recognize me from that because I got to play that character and do kick-ass stuff like action. So I'm most recognizable for my work in sci-fi because those fans are loyal.
The Comic-Con,
those are huge. I do conventions.
It's amazing. I mean,
but Baywatch is the most recognizable show I've been on, and then Modern Family.
Right. So you weren't on the Baywatch with David Hasselhoff, but obviously he was very involved.
So so I was the star of the original spinoff from Baywatch called Baywatch Hawaii. Right. And so we went to Hawaii to film, and David came and did a couple episodes, and then he went. I forgot what the storyline was, but he went to do something else. And then we stayed in Hawaii, me and Jason Momoa and Brooke Burns. Like we stayed in Hawaii and filmed. But David was a sweetheart, and we did do a few episodes together.
Now, I met David in West Hollywood, sort of randomly in a restaurant. And he was having lunch or breakfast with a friend of mine. And I wanted to go over because when I was a kid, my parents loved Knight Rider. And I was so sort of like, because it wasn't like a hero of mine, it was my parents. It was like I didn't even think about it. And I went over, I said, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but like, you know, my parents loved you in Knight Rider. And I don't think that's what he wanted to hear. But he was so gracious and so sweet. And then he said, well, you know, who are you and what do you do? And my friend said, oh, come and join us. Anyway. We start chatting, and I was working in the music business at the time. And he said, oh, my girls are singers and they want to be singers. I said, oh, okay. And he said, and I told him a few of the things that I'd been working on. And he said, oh, would you come and meet them? You know? So I said, sure, you know, and it was a big novelty. And I mean, he really is as you might agree, he's a larger than life character.
He is, yeah.
I mean, people love him. I mean, I've been around a few different like big celebrities. I've never seen anyone as beloved as David Hasselhoff.
It's a true story.
And so I helped him with his kids. I went to meet them and stuff. And then he said, he said, you know, I'm trying to launch their career and I'm going to make a reality show about, you know, me and them to try and help them launch. And I said, oh, that's, you know, great, you know, good for you. And he said, well, would you be on it so that, you know, you could be like their coach or their mentor or something? And I was like, yeah, I mean, sure, you know. So I arrived for the first day of filming, and his daughters are just wonderful, just lovely, absolutely beautiful, lovely. And you know, it's very sad to hear of their mother's passing. Anyway, I arrived for filming, and the producer comes over. He said, you know, can I just talk to you for a second? And I was like, sure. He said, listen, like the show is great, but we're having a little bit of trouble. We really need like kind of like a love interest for David. And I was like, okay. So they said, listen, would you mind? We could set it up very much that, like, is there something going on? Maybe there is. And then there's like paparazzi's taking pictures, and then maybe there's something. And then we find out that it was all kind of like it all blew over. It was all like a misunderstanding. And I was like, I guess. And I mean, we were about to film. So I was like, I guess. I mean, so I said, okay. So I agreed to it, and we did the whole setup shot of like, and we had it be that, I wanted him to be in my music video, and I was helping his girls, and he would be in my music video. And when he asked me, I jumped on him and kissed him and like to say thank you. And then the paparazzi got it, and then they thought we were in a relationship. And then we had this whole thing where we filmed like we were all laughing about how funny it was that the paparazzi thought we were, an item. So all wrapped and everything. The show airs, the first episode, we get the whole setup. The show gets cancelled.
No.
So we never have the reveal.
Oh my gosh.
Never have the reveal. So for the rest of my life,
you're linked.
Everybody is like, oh, you're David Hasselhoff's ex-girlfriend. I'm
wow.
like, no, I'm not.
No.
But
well, let it be said now.
Yes, let it be said. But he was charming and wonderful. And someone who talks about himself in the third person.
Oh.
It's very interesting when people are like referring to themselves like
it is
the
so
Hoff.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Well, we call him Hassel. Like Hassel.
God, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that must have been, I mean, to be part of a show like that, do you feel like you don't want to be recognized for that because you have such a body of work that you've done?
No, I don't have any hangups about that. Okay. I love being recognized for that too. It was fun. But I will say that I I was the smart one on the show as well. Mm-hmm. Not the smart one, but I played a kinesiologist. Mm-hmm. I didn't look like some of the other girls. I had short hair. I was athletic. Yeah. So I was sort of the lifeguard on the show, right? Okay. At the time, I was just a serious actress, and I didn't want to be known for. In fact, I never used my nude modeling as a stepping stone. I never had it on my resume. Wow. I would have hidden it if the internet wouldn't have come around a couple years later, because no one would have known.
Gosh darn that internet!
I know.
I mean,
so that everyone then they know, but also it just wasn't where I wanted to be known for. But I wasn't. But even if I was like the Pam Anderson on the show, that would be fine, right? Like, I'm happy about being recognized for anything. My body of work is so big that I'm not insecure about being recognized for Baywatch. I think it's fantastic, you know. And I loved that show. I had so much fun working on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's and it really is. It has a cult following now, and as the sci-fi shows that you've watched.
Well, and some of my best friends are still. I mean, Simone was one of my co-stars, and she's still one of my dearest friends. Yeah.
I think there is such a bonding in working in that field, because it's high pressure, it's exclusive, and you do make it's like Trump bonding in a way, you know.
It is
kind of,
well, depending on the show too.
So now, as a sober woman with a family and in a different stage of your life, what do you think are your coping mechanisms to achieve balance with your career and family and sobriety?
Well, that's such a good question, because I think about coping mechanisms a lot now. I don't have what I used to fall back on, but I also don't have the obsession to use those same tools, right? Drugs and alcohol. I was obsessed with it when I was in it. And now that it's been far removed from me, almost 13 years in a couple months, well, less than.
It's amazing.
Thank you. I have to be really intentional about what I run to when I'm in fear, you know? And so I have prayer, I have God 100%. My first thought in the morning is God. I pray before I get out of bed. I read, I do devotional reading and different 12-step literature reading. I meditate every day. And that just starts my day.
Right.
But then, life happens, things happen, both good and bad. I like congratulatory triggers as well. I like talking about congratulatory triggers, because that's that cocaine high that, you can get right back on, right? Something really great happens.
Reward
and then it
yourself.
stops and you're like, oh, I need to reward myself. Or then that high stops, right? Like you can be really excited about an event, but then you go home and you're like, I have to wash my face. You want to keep it going. So I just use some of the tools I've used are, besides prayer and meditation, are my sober sisters. I would not be here if it weren't for my sober sisters.
Yeah.
I just lean on them, you
Yeah, I
know?
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're one of them.
Yes.
And you know, I think like building community, I think it's something that, especially being in Los Angeles, there are fewer family systems that, you know, that people grow up in because this is a transitory town.
Yeah.
So I think building a community is so sort of undervalued. And I think we have, you know, we're so fortunate that we're part of programs that encourage that and offer platform for that. But really for people who are struggling, for people who maybe come here and they're actresses or they're looking for success and they're struggling with mental health, to build a community, I think is so valuable, to hold yourself accountable to be of service to. I mean, I know that service is a big part of your life too, as it is mine. And just like finding a way to make sure that in one of the more possibly superficial or regarded as the most superficial town, and with the entertainment business being so difficult to maintain kind of peace and balance, I think being of service is a huge thing.
Service is a really big thing. I love that you brought that up because that was my next thought. In fact, when I'm really in it, the one thing I've learned to do is call somebody who's hurting because you have to get it out of your head, right? And even if you're not in it, you know, reach out to others, think of others. This self-centeredness is this huge problem in our community and every community. And I should say it's not just my sober sisters, but my best friends who are just normal, you know, not sober, not drinkers. But that's because I'm willing to share now. I'm willing to lean on them. And so much has been given to me in that regard of support and community. In fact, I called somebody on the way here. I know she's in a weird spot, and I just wanted her to know I was thinking of her, and I was just lending my ear, not talking about myself, being of service to her. I have some, you know, I'm a mentor to some girls, and that's really fulfilling. And I'm really vocal about my sobriety as an act of service. And you mentioned community, and it's so interesting because, yes, this is a transient town, but I think more than ever we're isolated because I know even for me, I'm home more now than I ever used to be. And because everything's on my phone. And people, more often than not, are home on their phones, on their devices, not out as much. I mean, the LA traffic would beg to differ, but it does seem like we're a lot more isolated as people. And so it's really important to show up for each other and be of service to each other and extend your hand and be there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I learned really early on in my sobriety is, you know, call 3 people a day. Call 3 people, and even if you don't have time to chat with them, call and check in. You know, say, oh, I only have about 5 minutes, but just want to see how you're doing. And just, I mean, you know, I think it's a thing of our time, but I think it's the human condition to self-obsess. You know, and I'll sit there thinking about whatever I'm thinking about, but it's me. The primary character in my story is always me.
Always,
And to get myself out of that, it's really, and sometimes I have to drag myself out of that. You know, because I feel so consumed with whatever the thing is.
Well, and that's not self-esteem building, really. I have a recovery manager who always says, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. It's like we all have this insecurity. I'm not much, but I'm all I think. It's like
totally. Yeah. I mean, you know, I feel as though the entertainment business has changed a lot for women in the time that we've been around. Do you think it's moving in the right direction
for women? Actually, I do think the entertainment business is now moving in the right direction for women. I see a lot more diversity with women in TV and film. But I think the entertainment business as a whole is taking such a different turn now. It's so interesting what's happening. I think for women of my age and women of a certain age, it's incredible right now because there's conversation and not just movies and TVs. And here we are, but you know, people are saying the word menopause now. You would have never heard that even 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Like totally. That's something I want to talk about.
Well,
you know?
I mean, okay, so
Yeah.
5 years ago during the pandemic,
Okay.
my best friend in the world and I
Uh-huh.
decided, because we were so bored, we were like, let's do a show about menopause. Let's do a podcast or a book or a movie,
Yeah.
something. We wanted a docuseries,
Yes.
something. So we researched.
Right.
And like, we were only 50 then.
Right.
50 something. She's a little older than me. And there was such crap. Like, you can't believe how boring and depressing and just not stimulating and just benign. It was so bad, like what was out there. So we were really like, yes, we are on. Let's do it. And then that fizzled out because whatever. But today, there are so many women talking about women's issues. And that's taking its cue with Hollywood, is taking its cue from that too. So I think women my age are going to start working more. And I think there's going to be more important stories being told. But there's so much saturation. I don't know if it'll be heard. But I do think Hollywood is being kinder to women right now. I also think women have different opportunities.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do sort of what the system wants us to do anymore.
Right.
And that empowerment is just beautiful for the younger generation. I'm seeing it in my friends' daughters and their friends and how empowered they are to be themselves.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. I didn't have that in my group growing up. When I was in my 20s, no way.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember being, anywhere between like 16 and 26. And 26 was when I got sober. And just literally coming from, first of all, I'm English. Second of all, it was a different time.
Yeah.
And just thinking I had to morph myself into whatever anyone wanted me to be at the time, and having no true sense of my own identity. And in fact, I think discovering my own identity didn't even come, like, it took about 10 years after I got sober to really start to kind of like move into that area and ask myself, well, what do I like? And I feel as though, as you say, young people now are given a platform and a voice to explore who they are, what's important to them, what they like, but what they like and why they like it, what they don't like and how they can say that they don't like it.
Yes, I didn't have that permission when I was that age. And these girls now do. The women, the young women that I know, they are vocal, they are proud, they're boundaried. And if they don't know, they're not afraid to say, I don't know.
Right.
Oh my
I was
God.
terrified to say I didn't know.
I knew everything.
I mean,
I
one
had
of my
to.
things was if someone said a word I didn't understand, I would never say that I didn't know what it meant. And I mean, honestly, it got me in trouble, because,
Of course.
I would end up like, going somewhere or doing something. I didn't know what it was.
Don't even know what people are talking about, but then you can't be engaged.
Right.
Then you're isolated some more.
Yeah. So I think it's a good time, but I think with every generation and with every point in time, there are advantages and there are different challenges. I mean, now with social media, I think young people face challenges that I didn't face. I mean, first of all, thank God there were not camera phones when I was up and out there.
No, thank Christ. Honestly, I think about this all the time.
Shoot.
No.
It's, when I think about anyone who does anything now, it's recorded. The concept of doxing, of attacking people online, of online bullying.
Yeah.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
And it's and I see it happen, it's pervasive.
Yeah.
And anybody can fall victim to it. And the tide of those sort of the people who troll the internet can change like that.
Yeah.
And it's causing suicides. It's causing,
but a lot of the 20-year-olds that I know, people who are in their 20s aren't really on social media.
Oh, that's good.
It's really good. It's really interesting. They're not spending as much time as maybe older people are.
Right.
It's just not interesting to them in the same way.
Because we're at home all the time.
I know. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So now what is next for you? What's happening now in your career, in your life?
Well, I'm still an actress. I took some time away from acting, but I love acting, and so I'm always open to doing another show, another movie. I did just film an episode of King of the Hill, which was King of the Hill has a new reboot coming out after 25 years. They're rebooting later this year. So I'm in an episode of that, which is really fun. I hope to do a little bit more of that. I'm also a yoga teacher now. A couple years ago, I actually learned more about yoga when I was in rehab 13 years ago. And so I do yoga. I go to yoga. And then I thought, well, why don't I just do a little teacher training and see how I like it? And then they said, do you want a job? And I love teaching yoga. It's just so fun for fun. I think I'm really good at it. It's something that gives me so much pleasure and I just do as part of something I love to do. I'm also writing a book, a memoir. I am, and I'm almost finished with it. And I have to say, writing this book has made me like myself. It's given me my dignity back. Like I read the chapters and I go, I like her. That girl's a fighter. She never gave up.
Right.
It's really profoundly empowering.
I'm emotional hearing about it because I thought about writing a book, a memoir, and it was too much. It was too much.
It is.
And so has it been difficult
A lot.
also?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 I work in therapy. I work with my therapist around some of the chapters that were the hardest. And actually I have one to read when I get home, a chapter that I want to edit. And it's going to be one of the it's the darkest night chapter.
Yeah.
It'll be hard, but it's me. It's, I know, look, I'm here. I'm here to tell the story.
Yes.
What could be more empowering than telling your own story
Yes.
and feeling good about it?
Yeah.
So,
well, I hope you'll come back and show us the book when you're ready.
I would love to.
And I also want to hear about passes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking. Passes is an interesting journey for me because I wanted to do, so I still love the modeling. I still love being a show person, right? Like I was a showgirl when I was real young. Like I love it, right?
Yeah.
And so I for a couple of years, hesitantly finally got on Instagram. I didn't want to, but I finally did. And then I'd show like these cute, fun, sexy. And I thought, I am a full woman and I am like, I want to show my full self and be sexy. And I'm smart and I talk about sobriety. I'm open about my recovery.
Right.
But I'm also like this sexy, beautiful, empowered woman. And so I would show these pictures on Instagram and get like likes and comments and it was super exciting, but it wasn't monetizing it. And I thought I could still monetize this. So a lot of the ex-playmates and my old Baywatch friends, a lot of Baywatch stars, they're all doing OnlyFans and they're doing similar content like that. And that just wasn't where I wanted to go. I love that they're doing it. I think my friend Denise Richards is on OnlyFans, like making a killing. I wanted something like that, but I didn't want that for me personally. And one day I was reading a story about Lucy Guo, and she's the founder of Passes. And I thought, what is Passes, right? And I read up about it, and it's a PG-13 R version of, it's a brand-friendly social media platform where you can go put beautiful pictures of yourself, sexy. You know, we have a non-nudity clause. We literally had to sign a contract saying like, just sexy, cute, sexy, nothing nude, and make money and monetize it. But also a way to really connect with fans because more DMs, like one-on-one, right? So communication. A lot of people come on and talk to me about their sobriety journey. A lot of people there are looking and craving attention, looking for attention and craving it, right? And then you form actual friendships with the people that are on there. And I've been on there now since August, so a few months, 8 months. And you just form really nice connections with people. And it's a really beautiful way for me to feel special and feel valued and give back and connect. So
I love it. I love it. And I think, I grew up in England, but also France and Italy. And since coming to America, I feel as though, so when I first came here, I thought that I was no longer attractive.
Wow.
Because in the south of France growing up, if you are remotely attractive, if you're walking down the street, men will just come and start walking next to you. And it's cultural. That's how we do it. And it's not creepy.
Yeah.
And so you have this, there's an expression in French that doesn't really have an exact translation. It's boud, which means it's sort of like you sulk, but it's like as a woman, it's like it's sort of like a part of intriguing where you'll
like you're
get in
pouty.
advance and then you're like, no,
No.
you know, no. But then they have to try more. And it's like a game, you know. And I realized that there's no, like, that doesn't live within American society in the same way it does in Europe. And so I would walk down the street, and I was here for about a year, and nobody asked me out. And I was like, what is wrong? You know? And then I realized that Americans seem to perceive nudity differently, sexuality differently. They seem to address it in a way where it's first of all, it's kind of taboo. Second of all, nudity seems to always equal sex here sometimes. And I feel like there's so much in between that.
Yeah.
You know, there's such beauty in the human form. And for me growing up, like, we were all topless on the beach, and it wasn't a deal.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't, and also women weren't getting attacked because they were topless on the beach, right? Which kind of breaks down the argument of when women are assaulted here, of like, oh, well, what was she wearing?
Oh God.
Right?
Oh, that's the worst.
And I find that to be a great challenge in this country, and one that still exists. But I think it's even better for that reason that you kind of have transcended that cultural kind of glitch.
I really appreciate that. You know, every now and again, someone sneaks in and says, why are you lowering yourself? You're demeaning yourself. You're degrading yourself. And it's like, how could you say that? It's a show of confidence. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a grandma.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this forever.
You're smoking hot. Smoking hot.
I mean,
you know?
I'm just saying, like, this is just, I feel great right now. And this is something I get to do right now. And I really am enjoying it. And what could be more beautiful than being comfortable in your own skin and just being true to yourself?
Right. And I mean, I think for me, it's like, as long as you feel comfortable and as long as it's in an appropriate setting. I say to like what I tell clients and, you know, even my daughter is, being naked isn't bad, but is this the right time? Is this the right place? And what are you communicating? You know, what do you want?
Yeah.
And I think being intentional about that kind of thing, and also removing the charge and the stigma around being naked, always being sexual, being naked is always bad. You know, it's just, is this the right occasion for this behavior? And that goes for any behavior. Right. You know, I explained to someone the other day, a girlfriend, a young girlfriend of mine, that, you know, I'm not upset by what she's wearing, but I'm wondering what she wants. You know, if you're going out, I mean, I love to dress up. I love to dress down. I love all the different, I like to dress in costumes and all the things, right? But you are communicating with how you present yourself. So it's good to be thoughtful in what kind of attention do you want in this environment?
Right.
Yeah. So I think, and I think for the first time ever for women, we do have a platform to be more curious about, what do we want? What do we like? What kind of attention do we want? And also our ability to say, I've changed my mind now.
Absolutely. You know, and the other thing I will say is, because I did kind of grow up as a sex object and a sex symbol and all these things, I actually had to learn, and this is the most important thing, and what I would say to any young girl, build yourself from the inside first. If I was simply running around in a bikini selling, you know, booby shots, like, okay, fine too, but
Mhm.
I actually do more work on my interior life. And because I feel so good on my interior life, I like to, I'm okay exposing my interior and my
Right.
exterior life, right? Like
Right.
I'm okay with it,
Yeah.
but I'm also really okay with just being a really sexual individual because I am also incredibly smart, kind, compassionate, intelligent, worldly, uh, funny,
Yeah.
bright, like witty, clever, and creative, like so
Yeah.
many things, right? I'm not just a sex
Yeah.
symbol.
Totally.
I'm not just tits and ass. I'm so much more than that. And I know that today,
Yeah.
that's why I can be my full self in whatever form I decide to take that in. I'm actually quite conservative, like in my real life, right? I don't run around dressed like hoochie mama all the time.
Right.
But you better believe that if I want to be, I'm gonna be, and I'm gonna feel just okay about it. Like I'm fine with it because I know who I am on the inside, and that's really all that really matters.
It really is, and I feel so lucky that that women
Wait,
like
I just said
you,
hoochie mama. Who says
hoochie
that?
mama.
That means
We do, apparently. Yeah, I feel so glad to know you and to like have gotten an idea of where you've come from and what you've come through, and to see you as a survivor and emerging with success and with, that kind of like, you don't need to care, you don't care what other people think. Do what you want. Because your intention, your connection with whatever it is, your higher power, you know who you are.
I'd say I like to say it's not that I don't care what people think because I'm not a sociopath. I just am not bothered by it.
Right.
Because I know what I think about me.
Yeah.
But like I said, every now and again it seeps in and I go, and then I look at it and I go, yeah, right. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
Manage your expectations about me.
Right.
I'm probably going to post a bikini shot pretty soon.
Well, I'm sure lots of people are delighted about that. And we'll put a link to your passes so people can check it out. I can't wait to read your book. And I'm just glad to know you. And I think this will be continued.
Well, I think the world of you. I think you are an inspiration and a huge survivor and a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you.